But first, we examine the results from our latest PBS NewsHour NPR Marist poll, the president's continued attacks against the media, and the battle over health care on Capitol Hill. It's time for Politics Monday with Tamara Keith of NPR and Stu Rothenberg, senior editor at Inside Elections. And welcome to you both on this day before the 4th of July. Thank you for wearing red, white, and blue. So, Tam, the White House is saying they fully expect that that some version of a reform plan that the Republicans like is going to pass the Senate, going to pass Congress. What does your reporting tell you?
It's possible, though at the moment Mitch McConnell has described the effort to find a health care bill that 50 Republicans can support in the Senate as like working with a Rubik's Cube. Like you move one piece and then some other piece moves out of the way. It's a very delicate negotiation that's happening right now. It's not clear that they'll get there. Some of the Medicaid cuts that were just discussed in the last segment are a hang-up. There are other hang-ups for more conservative Republicans, but they are highly motivated to get to a win. And so you can't discount the motivation that exists to find a way.
Stu, I think I've asked you this question before. So what is the calculus if you're a Senate Republican? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think the choice is not passing anything or passing something that it's going to be broadly unpopular, but is going to find a lot of support within Republican and conservative circles. That's the choice. And for most Republicans, I think for most Republican strategists, campaign strategists, passing something is a strong imperative. You got to do something for the base, even if you risk alienating the larger electorate. For individual members, that has some different equations. For somebody like Lisa Murkowski in Alaska, Susan Collins, Rand Paul, Rob Portman, they have their own considerations, ideological or state-based.
But it still looks, Tam, like it's really hard to square the circle or circle the square.
Yeah, at this point, it does look that way. But you know what? It kind of looked that way in the House, too. It looked like it was a dead bill, so we were calling it a zombie bill. And then next thing you knew, boom, they passed it. They came up with a compromise that didn't seem to materially change anything, and yet it passed, and they were able to move it over to the Senate. And so, you know, don't declare this thing dead. It could be back.
So maybe, Stu, where there's a will, there's a way.
And where there's a Mitch McConnell, there's always a possibility.
All right, so let's talk about something else, and that is, Tam, back to the president's tweets. He's tweeted, I guess, a couple of times about health care, but he's tweeted a number of times about the news media. Last week, it was the cable show host, Mika Brzezinski, Joe Scarborough, but yesterday there was this new tweet where it was sort of an edited video of the president pummeling a man on the ground. We've got showing it here with CNN over his face. How do we interpret this?
There are many ways to interpret it. But, you know, President Trump, as a candidate and now as a president, to use the wrestling analogy, he wanted a heel. He needs a heel. He needs a foe. You know, and he has decided that the media is going to be his foe, his heel in this wrestling match that is his presidency. And so, I mean, that image, that video is a pretty perfect description of the way he is approaching this. Having that fight, having that feud really excites some people who support him. Now, there are others who are turned off by it, and you know, we could go down the road of the dangers of having a video that looks like it is encouraging violence against members of the media. But it works for, this is the same Donald Trump who ran for president and won.
How does it advance his cause now?
Yeah, first of all, I think Tam is exactly right on this. I would just add two things. One is it advances his cause by mobilizing and motivating his base. They love it when he attacks the media. They really think it's exciting, and they agree with him. And as I'm sure we'll talk about, the media is not held in the highest regard. Second of all, he enjoys it. It's all, look, let's remember, Judy, he did that in that wrestling show. He actually did that. It's his ego. He wants to be the center of attention. He wants to be the focus of everything. And I think he just has a lot of fun when he does that. And for Donald Trump, it's more fun to do that than to actually get into the weeds in public policy.
Well, and I was talking to a Republican consultant today who was like, yes, it's a distraction, but maybe it's a welcome distraction, because if people are talking about his tweets and talking about WrestleMania, then they aren't talking about Medicaid cuts.
And of course, there is then the role of a free press in a democracy, one of the pillars of our form of government in this country. But we could talk about that another time. I do want to raise in our last few minutes this news CNN. I'm sorry, I had CNN on the brain from the video. The new poll that the NewsHour and NPR did in conjunction with Marist, where one of the things we looked at was exactly what you mentioned: high distrust of the news media. More than 2/3 of Americans, they were asked, what do you think about trust in institutions? And here it is. 37%, a good deal or great amount of trust in the Trump administration. 30%, even less trust in the news, in the media, and 20, about the same par as trust in Congress. And you go on to see trust in the intelligence community, twice that much, 60%, and in the courts, 60%. But the bottom line here, Stu, is that the media may be a good whipping boy.
Yeah, and I think the public sees the media as a political institution, just as they see the White House, the president, and Congress. And right now, nobody trusts politicians or people covering politicians. It's a horrible trend. I look back to Gallup numbers in the early 1970s, and those of us in the media are regarded much worse than we were back then. But it's been occurring over the past couple of decades.
Yeah, Republican Senator Ben Sasse over the weekend said something that goes in conjunction with the tweets and fits with these numbers too. He said he was concerned that the president was trying to weaponize distrust. And then here's the quote: "We are at risk of getting to a place where we don't have a shared set of public facts. A republic will not work if we don't have shared facts." These numbers are part of a very long trend of institutions losing trust from the American people, and that puts America at risk.
Very quickly, in the last 30 seconds, I want to show our audience and you the other question in the poll. Since President Trump was elected, has the overall tone and level of civility in Washington gotten worse? 70%, stayed the same, 20 improved, 6. Stu, I guess no surprise here.
No, I mean, some people actually see what they want to see. Strong Republicans, 17% said that it improved, and white evangelicals, 10% had things that improved. But the overall sample is very clear and, in fact, very correct. Things have deteriorated. They're coarser. They're more vulgar. It's not a time of better tone.
Well, we are glad to promote civility here at the NewsHour. Stu Rothenberg, Tamara Keith, thank you both.
Thanks, Judy.
And you can find more about these findings from our joint PBS NewsHour and NPR Marist poll, and that's on our website, pbs.org/newshour.